Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Running the Gauntlet. We are just about through the gauntlets located within Phase 3 of the Curse of the Vampire DLC, and today we will be covering the second to last gauntlet within this run, which brings us to the level 100, the final Nail Gauntlet. This one is a very long gauntlet compared to the ones that we've seen so far with 7 segments, but don't you worry because we're going to go over the requirements for each individual segment as well as all 4 tiered rewards. So let's jump right into that, shall we? So the first section is a timed fight where you will, in the end, need to fight and defeat Cull Obsidian. And it's in my least favorite part of the entire game, that being the section of Hell. Now, you have 60 seconds on the clock. You do have the ability to regain time by taking out opponents, and keep in mind that there will be cursed enemies that pop up throughout the quest that will eventually turn your team to the infected status, though you can remove that status from your team from defeating all of the infected and cursed enemies within the vicinity. So we take a brief moment to take out some of the enemies here on this bridge, mainly because in the main story quest there are a couple of enemies on this area, and they do factor into this mandatory combat segment here at the end to reopen this gate. As you can see over on the right hand side of the screen, slaying all Viking souls, which is a count of 20, it actually starts with 4 of those already being cleared out. But we can make very quick work of these characters, especially because we've got Thanos Infinite on our team. He really helps us clean the house and finish these things up. So we now have just under 3 minutes left on our timer, and we will have 3 minutes going into the fight with Cull Obsidian. We're just taking out some of these opponents as they are in our way. And as we progress down this pathway towards Hellas Castle, we won't actually make it there because Cull Obsidian shows up right in the middle, breaking our path. Now, Cull Obsidian is a very terrifying character. Luckily, we have Thanos Infinite on our team, and anytime Thanos Infinite detonates his extreme attack, we will instantly stagger out any of the full-strength enemies in the vicinity. So that really helps us when taking him down. And with a couple of final ability attacks from the rest of our team, we have Cull Obsidian taken down, and we can move on into Phase 2 of this gauntlet, which is a section where we need to defeat 40 enemies with a couple of mini-boss characters that pop up. It starts off with Mystique cropping in right off the start of the fight, about 5 seconds in, if that. And you will want to make quick work of Mystique because she has that cursed attribute, and you don't want to be sitting with your team members in that infected state for too long where you can help it. You also have a couple of Sentinels that will come in, and if you do not take them out quickly enough, they will detonate, and if there is a cursed member of the team around, or of the opponent's team around, they will actually revive upon being defeated and come back with a couple of status effects such as the ice, electric, or fire attributes, or any of those other cursed effects that we've seen. My strategy here with Thanos is pulling the currently available characters into the middle of the map, and then following up with the attack where we freeze our opponents in place and then pummel them from a close distance. Because at the end of the day, though we can defeat Venom here, freeing us from the cursed effect there, he is not a member of the mandatory characters that we need to take out in order to clear out this section. So with this final ability detonation, we will have over 40 enemies cleared, and that will take us into the third segment of this gauntlet, which is another one that can be a little bit tricky. It's a fight against Maximus, and as you can see, Maximus does have the cursed attribute, and all of these opponents that jump in also have that cursed attribute there. That was actually a misfire on my part because, yes, it did stagger out Maximus, but it also left us wide open for his attack, and I tend to save that for this phase because we have 2 versions of Iron Man that pop in, which we need to defeat all 3 of them in order to progress out of this fight. And like we've seen before, if you detonate Thanos' Ultimate's extreme attack, you can stagger out any of the mighty or mini-boss characters that are in the area. And subsequently, if you play your cards right, you should even be able to defeat those 2 Iron Men as soon as they're spawning in to get them out of the way. Maximus is the one that tends to be the real bug here because, as you're familiar, he has a high probability at this phase of triggering these large laser cannons, which in the main story quest you're typically fine because you have Thane to protect you with his amber encasing. But he's not present in this phase of the fight, which means that your entire team takes the full force blast of all 4 of those laser cannons that crop in from the side. So taking out Maximus as quickly as you can before he has a chance to reset and do that again is really going to be in your best interest here. And we just about have the final Iron Man taken down, and we now have Maximus staggered out as well. So we're just going to lay into him with a couple of our heavy attacks as Thanos Infinite, because it does a lot of damage to both his health and his stagger bar as well. And that is going to draw us over to the 4th phase, which is a section of the dark dimension that we'll need to traverse. It is the segment where we need to go to the Loki fight, as Loki is the end opponent here that we will need to be taking out. And you will need to take on a couple of these obstacles in your way as well. And that's going to involve taking out that ice artifact and the electric artifact here. And that's going to take a moment, so while we're running that out, I want to touch on a few of the criteria for the full clear rewards while we're running through this mandatory combat here. The first one, of course, as always, is running through the Gauntlet, all 7 parts of it, and getting that full clear. You will then be able to run this multiple times and on a loop to get the other 3 criteria, 2 of which you will absolutely need to run the Gauntlet multiple times for in order to even have a shot at grabbing them, though they're not that difficult, especially if you focus on taking them out. Quick side note, because Miles and Wolverine were getting fairly low here, I did detonate their extreme attacks a little bit earlier, but we do have the infection on our team members, so I wanted to clear that off so it was, or clear up their health and help restore some of that so it wasn't as desperate. Also, here with this section, we will need to grab the flame charges here. You can also wait on some of those mindless ones to send some energy blasts your way, but it's better off to just wait for that flame artifact, as that's what you do in the regular story quest anyway. Now, as a reminder here, you are brought into this large traversal segment. This first area is purely optional. There are a couple of extra rewards that you can claim if you choose to clear out the artifacts here and grab those boxes, but you are on a time limit, so keep that in mind as you are traversing around, as down here is the more beneficial area, as there are 3 sets of artifacts that you'll need to clear out. There's this one down on the low ground, which is the flame artifact. You will then have to take out the electric artifact, which is up on an elevated platform, which is now available to us through the portal at the back side of the map here, because we've taken out that flame artifact. The electric artifact actually only spawns in here once you have passed through that portal, and similar to the ice artifact that's down here on this little pedestal, it only spawns in once the electric artifact has been taken down. And with a couple of final attacks there, it is now cleared up as well, and there are enemies that you can stick around and take out if you're really desperate on time, but if you're not, and you just want to get to the final boss fight segment, which is up here, you can just go through there. You have to work a little bit with this camera, as it does turn topsy-turvy and kind of cause a little bit of a nuisance there, but it is manageable. Now, the other thing about this final fight against Loki is Loki has that cursed attribute to him, but it's not going to do you a whole lot of benefit in taking him out to clear up your infection, because you will also finish out this section of the Gauntlet as well. Now, we're taking advantage of Thanos Infinite's ability here again with Loki, now that we are in Section 2, where we are going to detonate his extreme attack, instantly stagger him out, and then bring all of our teammates over closer to deal the finishing blows. And you'll see there that Gambit was sitting very low, which was an opportune moment for us to finish out and restore some of his health, as well as clear out Section 4 of this Gauntlet. And that brings us into the 5th section, which is going to be a boss rush against 4 different mini-boss characters. It starts off with Electro, and as far as mini-bosses go, Electro is a very simple, very easy mini-boss to take on. He can be a little annoying if you get caught in his electrical attacks, as they can stagger out the members of your team, but he's very weak in terms of mini-bosses go, because his boss fight is meant to be in tandem with Venom. so there's no adjustments made to that. The second mini-boss that we have here is Wolverine. Wolverine is a little bit more of a struggle, but not by a whole lot. As you see, we have him staggered out here, and with a couple of heavy attacks from Thanos Infinite, we have cleared him out, which actually clears our team of that infection, as Wolverine had that cursed attribute to him. The final two bosses do spawn in at the exact same time, and they are Elektra and Ronan. And as soon as they come into effect, you'll want to seek to take them out as quickly as you can. Ronan more so than Elektra, as Elektra will run around the arena and try and hunt you down, but Ronan has a lot of heavy hitting attacks that will track you down across the arena, such as these purple lightning strikes that come in, as well as the large area of effect attacks, such as the one that he just detonated on top of us there. Thanos isn't looking so good, so I use one of his abilities to get out of here, and then I did detonate my extreme attack a little bit earlier than, or I should have held on to that. And then I detonated the extreme attack here to finish out the fight, restore a little bit of some health. I would have liked to have held on to that to the first part of the next combat segment, but unfortunately it was a necessary sacrifice in order to make sure that he did not go down and be in need of reviving. This sixth segment is a section where we need to take on 200 enemies with a couple of mini-bosses that pop up in between. My strategy is going to be widely the same. Set up the EP and health restoration cycle in the center, and then cycle those attacks of the stall attacks and large area of effect there with Thanos Ultimate. With Thanos Infinite to cycle through them and get these enemies taken down very quickly. And as you can see, we are just racking up the enemies defeated. We also have to take into consideration that Captain America is also here, and he has that cursed attribute to him, so you need to be cautious of that, as you will gain the infection by standing too close to him. But as it comes down to it, he is relatively tame, though he does like to knock you down a lot as he is fighting with you. And just like that, Cap is down. We're going to rinse and repeat a couple of other things. You'll see a couple of other mini-bosses pop up here. We have Spider-Gwen that pops in. We have Miles Morales that comes around. So a couple of them will come through, and we will need to pay to them some attention. But my overall strategy in this section of the fight is not going to change. We're just going to rinse and repeat this attack that dragged everyone in, and then cycle through with another attack that takes out most, if not all, of the enemies that get sucked into the range of that attack. So we're going to touch on a couple of those others, clear conditions here as we do so, which is going to involve defeating 25 cursed enemies. Feasibly, you can do this in a single run of this gauntlet if you are honing in on or paying particular attention to, or paying particularly close attention to the enemies that come in and are the enemies that come in with that cursed attribute. It is not a unique thing to the mini-bosses, though it does tend to be common amongst them. And yes, there are at least 25 of those enemies that you can take on. I was mainly trying to get through this as quickly as I can, especially because this is one of the things that you can loop back around and do multiple times if you're still missing a couple of those cursed enemies. This section is actually really helpful for getting one of the second criteria as well, which is defeating 900 enemies within this gauntlet, because, well, you get a free 200 opponents here, so it really helps to bolster those numbers. You can probably get that in about 2 runs of the gauntlet, but again, if you don't, it's not a huge concern, because you can start into that 3rd run and then quit out as soon as you have that milestone requirement met as well. The last one that we're going to touch on as this fight finishes up is you need to earn a score of 1 million or more, which again, you're going to need to do multiple times. You can maybe do it in 2 runs of the gauntlet, but if you bleed into that 3rd run, it's not going to be the end of the world at all. Most of the rewards you get out of this are a couple of ISO or other artifacts, and then a lot of the shield tokens to use at the shield depot. And with that being said, we are in the 7th and final section of this gauntlet, which is going to involve fights primarily against a cursed variant of Iron Man and Captain America, so make sure that you take them out as quickly as you can to rid yourself and your team of that infection, because once these characters come down, this will trigger the spawn of Punisher, Moon Knight, Blade, and Morbius. Now, Morbius has the cursed attribute to him right off the start of the fight, though the other ones are just spawned in with that infection. So be cautious about that. And as you see here, I am taking full advantage of Thanos' extreme attack to instantly incapacitate these mini-boss characters. And you saw that Morbius went down with the whole detonation of those 3 characters there as well. We're going to finish out the last couple of these characters, mainly using Thanos Infinite with his abilities here. You see that we just put Blade down. Punisher is hanging out over there in the corner at a relatively low health, and Moon Knight is also getting fairly low, and as soon as you have these 4 characters down, you will have the gauntlet finished out. There goes Moon Knight, and Punisher is going to fall to one final heavy attack here from Thanos, and that is it for the level 100, the final nail gauntlet. So if you found this enjoyable or helpful, please feel free to leave a like on that video, as that greatly helps me out, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily content, as I post videos from different games every single day for your enjoyment. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.